as we're taking the picture, I think Lisa gives me a little scoot and says through her smile, "By the way, I'm cropping you out of this." Hi, my name is Mark and welcome to the channel. Today is another Wednesday Unwind where I'm sitting with you, sharing a story and winding a little bit of yarn for a project. So today I'm talking all about Lisa Lou, Celine Dion, and the tandem bike. If you're curious, stick around. Let's get into it. If you've been on my channel before, you may have seen this yarn. It is Cricket from Kelbourne Woolens, and I previously wound several skeins for a colorwork sweater vest, and I need to break into my last skein of the main body color just to finish out the ribbing that goes around the neckline and the arm openings. So on the above head camera, here's a closer look at Cricket. It's a really beautiful tweed yarn. It's kind of between a fingering and a sport weight. Different people, different patterns call it a different weight. I think the bits of tweed really bulk it up quite a bit. So it's sort of flexible depending on what you want to make with it. But I love the color range. I talk about it a lot in a couple other videos where I'm knitting that sweater vest. So if you're interested, you can check out some of those. I'll make sure to link them in the description box below. So with my winding, I shimmy off the label and then I need to unwind the hank here, and I've got my big loop of yarn. And some people have asked me if I snap the yarn. I don't really snap it, but I do give it a stretch. I make sure that all of the yarn looks like it's spiraling around the same direction. It's not twisted on itself any. And then after that, I'm good to place it around my Swift. So I just have one skein of yarn to wind, but I've mentioned before with this yarn, it's pretty fragile. And it's not fragile once you've crocheted or knit with it. The fabric you create is sturdy, like using a superwash wool or an acrylic, a cotton, something else. But in this state, because it's such a lightweight, this is a single ply yarn, it's got all of the tweed in it. If you pull too hard on it, it will just snap. And if you're a crafter, you know that you can pull and snap any yarn that you already use. A lot of people say instead of keeping scissors in their project bags, they just snap their yarn. They pull it when they need to cut a tail or change colors, which totally works. But this yarn pulls and snaps really easily because it is a single ply. So I'll show you here on the front camera. If I pull, it snaps across. I mean, I have to put a little bit of strength into it. It's not just disintegrating, but you can see it's just a single ply. There's not a ton there to give it strength before you've crocheted it or knit it into a fabric. All right, so my stories today are about Lisa Lou, Celine Dion, and a tandem bike. Let me get started with my winding and then I'll start telling you the story. Let me double check that I have my microphone on the right setting so that it drowns out a little bit of the winding noise. Okay, so truly in this story, I meet Celine Dion with my friend Lisa, and there's a tandem bike playing a role here in the friendship, in the situation. So the year is, I think, 2011, and I'm off at college at Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey. And in my first year, my freshman year, I'm in the sort of required ensembles, I'm taking voice lessons, I'm taking my freshman load of courses. But then in my sophomore year, when we show up to school, we have choral hearings. We have these auditions, brief auditions. You're already in the school, you're already in your major, but they want to hear you. They want to hear you each year. I think it was just once per year to see how you're doing, to see how you're progressing, where you might fit well into different ensembles on campus. There were lots of choirs at this choir college, as you can imagine. So I go to my choral hearing and I see Lisa. I meet Lisa, who's a graduate student, and she's working the door, taking forms, making sure that everyone's showing up at the right time and that the people listening to you know that it's you. They know who's standing in front of them and what paperwork they have in front of them, so it matches. So I meet Lisa, we hit it off. Lisa is hilarious. She's an amazing storyteller, and I wish that she were sitting right next to me so that we could tell this story together. But alas, she lives on the East Coast, I'm in the Midwest. We get to see each other sometimes, but anyway, I meet Lisa and we hit it off. And then we find out at these choral hearings that they are holding a sort of special audition to put together the choir that will go to sing a concert at Central Park in maybe a month or two. It's happening pretty immediately following the start of the school year. And this is an Andrea Bocelli concert. So if you know Andrea Bocelli, he sings in an operatic style. He also sings a lot of popular music. He sings a lot with David Foster. Um, and very famously, he sings The Prayer with Celine Dion. So Lisa and I both end up in this choir that is going to sing as the chorus, sort of the opera chorus, the background vocals for Andrea Bocelli, Celine Dion, David Foster. There were a couple of instrumentalists there, Bryn Terfel, a famous Welsh opera singer. So it was like a star-studded concert in Central Park, and it was one of those concerts that was filmed by PBS and comes on Great Performances. So if you ever watch Great Performances on PBS and you see Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion from Central Park, you might see me in the background, way, way, way in the background, but I was there. So really exciting opportunity. And especially because at the time I'm 18, 19 years old. So I was really excited. So we make our way to these rehearsals. We had already prepared our music. We had worked for a month or two to get everything ready. And now we're going into the city, into New York City from Princeton for these rehearsals. And we were briefed on what we were allowed to do because we were working with a lot of celebrities. So there was security, there were areas that were roped off. You had to have your ID badge. People, of course, had to have background checks. I'm sure we had to go through metal detectors because there are a lot of famous people in one place, and I'm sure their security teams wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable. So one of the clear rules was that we are not allowed to go approach Celine Dion. Some of the other entertainers said, sure, I'll do meet and greets if some of the choristers want to come see me. I'll take a picture, I'll sign an autograph, whatever. But we were told, do not go see Celine Dion. Not because she's mean, not because she's scary, but I think just because she is so famous, I can't imagine how overwhelming it would be to have 100 people when you're at work, when you're rehearsing and preparing for a concert, trying to come see you at your dressing room, trying to come get an autograph. I think that would be pretty distracting. So you can imagine where this is going. I think we had finished our concert, and I can't remember if we had maybe two of these concerts so that they filmed both and then, excuse me, could edit them down into the best takes. But anyway, we finished one of the concerts. We're walking outside, along the paths that are blocked off for us to get back to our holding area. And Lisa grabs my arm and says, come on. And so we go past the barrier, which in hindsight seems crazy, but we were kids. And she really wanted to see Celine Dion. So we make our way past the barrier. There's nobody really paying attention to us because everything's done. The concert's over at this point. People are packing up to go. And we find her. We run into her. And Lisa takes the wheel and, and approaches her and says, I'm a huge fan. You mean so much to me. We're so sorry to bother you. Would you take a picture with us? And Celine Dion was so nice. She said, of course. And she didn't seem bothered. I'm glad that a bunch of people didn't follow us, that it was just us who went to see her. And we take the picture with her. So we scoot in, and I think somebody there on her team was going to take the photo. This was before everyone could do selfies. And Lisa's in the middle, then there's Celine Dion, then there's me beside Lisa. And as we're taking the picture, I think Lisa gives me a little scoot and says through her smile, by the way, I'm cropping you out of this. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, you brought me here just so that if you got caught, the two of us would go down together. You would have a little bit of padding. But nonetheless, I'm in the picture. I have a lovely picture with Celine Dion. It features a very young Mark, a young Lisa, and a beautiful, shining beacon of talent and grace, Celine Dion. So I'm going to pop that up here. And yes, after after this experience, after Lisa graduated with her master's, once she started teaching, I did visit her classroom on the East Coast, and indeed, she has the picture propped up by her desk, and I am not there. The picture is cropped, so it's the two of them, and you never knew I was there, which is fine. Maybe I'll use AI to go in and crop Lisa out of the middle. So Lisa, I'm sure that I'll share this video with you, and I hope if you're watching, you enjoy these memories as much as I do. And I think it was a good plan for safety, and we have that memory forever, which is really cool. So to pause before I get to the tandem bike, my yarn is wound, so I've talked about this in other videos. I take the label and I fold it up and I put it in the center channel here of the ball, and I lift the ball around it so that if I were to let this sit for a while, if I weren't going to use it immediately, I would still have the label inside telling me the brand, the color, the dye lot, the washing instructions. But if I use it immediately, I just put it there as a placeholder. I like to pull from the center of my cakes so it does keep things from collapsing. And again, I just have the label in case I need it. You never know if a project is going to get abandoned and sit for a really long time. So I like to keep that carefully tucked. And the reason I don't wind my yarn immediately is because the yarn is a little bit happier when it's sitting in its twisted hank. It doesn't have much tension on it in that state, but once you wind it into a cake or a ball, however you like to work from your yarn, there's a good bit of tension on it. So it does it dulls the yarn a little bit. It makes it squished out and stretched out, which you can counteract later with blocking, with soaking it, but I just leave it on my yarn wall until I think I'm ready to use it. If you've been watching these videos, there's some yarn behind me that I wound a couple of weeks ago that I haven't touched yet. And I was thinking about it this morning. Maybe I shouldn't have wound that so early because I might not start that project for another few months, but it's not the end of the world. But if you know you're not going to use it, I hold off. Anyway, here's the yarn all caked up. I think it's really pretty yarn. I love the tweed, and the project's almost finished. I think some of my upcoming videos will be about that project because it's almost ready for steeking. It's almost ready to be blocked and finished. So we'll see more of that on the channel. Now for the tandem bike. So Lisa and I, the following summer, go with Westminster Choir, one of the choruses from our college, to the Spoleto Festival in Charleston, South Carolina. And Charleston is a beautiful, beautiful place. I've been there many times. I love spending time in Charleston. And if you're there in the summer, even in the spring, even in the fall, it's really hot and it's really humid. So we were there for something like 5 weeks to serve as the opera chorus for this music festival and do a couple of choral concerts throughout that stretch of 5 weeks. And it wasn't really a drivable situation. We were only ever going within like a mile or two of our dorms that we stayed in, but it was always so hot outside. Like, I'm sure it was always above 80. So it was either 80 or 90 degrees Fahrenheit and so humid, and you would have to walk 15, 20, 25 minutes to get from your dorm to your rehearsal venue or to the place where we did costume fittings. There are a few places we had to bounce around on a regular basis. And people would melt. I mean, you would get ready for the day, you'd be dressed according to the weather, and you'd walk there and you would just be drenched. So some people would bring a change of clothes. Some people would try to do other things to feel like they still felt somewhat clean and presentable for these rehearsals. So Lisa and I had the brilliant idea that we would rent bikes. And we looked up a bike shop, we walked to it, and then we realized that they had a tandem bike. And if you are not familiar with a tandem bike, I'll throw one up here on the screen. And it was a lifelong dream of mine to ride a tandem bike. I'm sure I had seen one in like a cartoon or something. There's no other association I have with a tandem bike, but I thought, I want to see what it's like to ride this tandem bike. So we rented a tandem bike, and I don't think it was much more expensive. It was probably the same cost to rent 2 individual bikes or rent a tandem bike. And I remember it was my birthday, and Lisa said she would get the bike for me for the first week as my birthday gift, which was super nice. I was a college student. I had no money whatsoever. We were making money to be at the festival, but I'm sure that we were getting paid maybe every week or every 2 weeks, so we hadn't seen our first paycheck yet. So Lisa gifts me with a tandem bike rental for the week for my birthday. So then we're like, great, we've got the bike, but we have to get to rehearsal. And we gave ourselves a little extra time, but we did plan, we'll have the bike, so it'll only take us 5 or 6 minutes to get to rehearsal instead of 20 walking. And so then we have to get on the bike, and we're in downtown Charleston, so there's not just space or a big parking lot for us to try it out in. We have to try it out like along the street with traffic or along the sidewalk. So we try the tandem bike, and if you've ridden a tandem bike, it matters who sits in the front. I think typically the heavier person, if there's a big discrepancy between the two, needs to be in the front, where sort of the steering, the thrust of it all happens. If the heavier person is in the back, it's really hard to get the bike going and to control it when you steer. At least that's my understanding. If you're a tandem bike expert, you may know a lot more. I'm sure if you're an expert, you will know a ton more. So I'm sure we started with Lisa in the front, thinking she's smaller, I'll be able to see past her, I don't know. And we could not get the bike to go. So, we're counting off 3, 2, 1, and then we just fall over. I mean, it was impossible. So then we flip it, we try the other way, and then we could go somewhere. But there's still a lot of coordination it takes to get going. Like with a regular bike, you can't just sit there, you have to pedal and you have to get some speed before it balances and stabilizes. So we get the bike going, but it was a trip. It was challenging. We didn't really know the neighborhood well. So we're going, we get to rehearsal, we make it. Then we decide the bike is so much fun and it's a good solution to the heat and the commute we need to do every day that we want to have this bike for 5 weeks. So that's what we do. We pitch a little bit of our money in by week 2 and we rent the bike for the next month. And in this experience, we learned so much. I think we had a basket where we could put our to-go food from restaurants or our groceries, whatever we had. And we had a bell, we had lights, we had our helmets. I mean, it was very involved. And Lisa, now being in the back, being on the back seat of the bike, she had one job. The person on the front has to steer and they have to brake. The person in the back has to pedal. I mean, they just sit there. They don't even have to pedal. And sometimes Lisa would take her feet off and I would be the one pedaling. And that's fine because the momentum just goes. It's not that much work once you start going. But the person in the back really just has to follow along because they don't get to start, they don't get to stop, and they don't get to steer. But the one thing the person in the back has is the, I forgot what it's called. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. Is the kickstand. So Lisa's one job was that when we stand by the bike, we're ready to go, she kicks the kickstand up and we can go. So it's probably day 2 or day 3 riding this bike. It's still a new experience for us. And we're riding along the sidewalk, which I think a lot of people who are not street cyclists, they're not people who commute and use a bike every day for work or pleasure. They don't realize that technically you're not supposed to ride your bike on the sidewalk. You're supposed to ride in the street. And this was before there were more bike lanes. So you're just riding in the right-hand lane with the traffic and they're supposed to go around you. So we're riding on the sidewalk because it seems crazy to ride our tandem bike in the street. And as we ride on the sidewalk, the number of people who would pull up right next to us, and it's hot, so people have their windows down, and then would just shout to us, which was so startling. They'd say, "You can't be on the sidewalk! You need to be in the street!" And then we almost fall off our bike because we don't expect someone to just scream at us from their car. So we were like, okay, we get it. So I think after like the 10th person told us in a 5-minute span, "You can't be on the sidewalk," we pulled into the street. So then we start going. And so that's like the big lesson 1. And then we rode in the street from then on. After that, I swear every time we would get on the bike, we'd put everything in the basket, we put our helmets on. If it's nighttime, we turn our lights on. We hold the bike. You remember Lisa's one job. We get on the bike and we start to pedal, And as we ride, we're going along minding our business. We're in the street, and then we have the people from the car, and they pull up right next to us, and without warning, they scream, and they would say, without a doubt, "Your kickstand's down!" And so then we're shocked. We laugh because it's alarming. And I say to Lisa, "Lisa, you have one job!" Because I swear, without fail, the kickstand was always down. I think that's the gist of it. So It was a great summer. It was a great time with the tandem bike. In the years since, I have tried to ride a tandem bike with my husband. We rented one at the beach at Hilton Head, which is a very bike-friendly place. It's such a vacation town. I think there it's more okay for you to be on the sidewalk, and there are more bike paths, things like that. But still, it was so challenging as an adult, as someone who's not that active, as someone who doesn't ride a bike normally in life, to then be on a tandem bike and to have to communicate that closely with your partner. So I don't know that tandem bikes are in my future, but it was a really fun experience with Lisa for that summer. We were young enough that it didn't faze us. And again, that's just a little bit of time with Lisa. And I hope you enjoyed these stories. I don't really have a good outro for this. So the time I met Celine Dion, the time we conquered the tandem bike, and a little bit of winding for you today. I really appreciate you being here with me. This channel is still finding its footing, so if there are things you like, if there are things you want to experience on the channel in the future, please let me know. I would love to hear ideas. I would love to springboard off of ideas you have to start different series or different types of videos here on the channel. I am doing a Flash Fiber Friday giveaway this Friday. So if you're familiar, the Flash Fiber Friday, I leave the video up forever, but if you visit it in the first day, and I'm going to extend that to the first 2 days, if you visit the video anytime Friday or Saturday and leave any sort of comment, you will be entered into a giveaway for some yarn. I'll talk about the yarn, talk about the fiber, why I like it in that video on Friday. So that's your heads up. If you're interested in entering or just seeing the yarn and learning about it, visit the channel definitely Friday or Saturday so you have a chance to enter before that closes. Otherwise, thank you for being here. Thanks for spending time with me. If you're not already subscribed, I would really appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Give me a comment, let me know your stories, let me know if you've ever ridden a tandem bike or if you've ever met Celine Dion. Happy knitting to you, happy crocheting, happy crafting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.